Hey, Peter, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, I have a question for you.
Yes. What is it?
Do you know what a blog is?
I have an idea, but I feel like I'm going to learn a lot more about it today.
I think so. Do you follow blogs?
Yes, I love blogs.
What makes you want to follow a blog?
I think it's knowing that whoever is writing it has a perspective and has some expertise in whatever it is I'm looking for. But then once you begin following it, you have a better sense of who they are, and you want to continue to read more because you want to know more about them as well. That's the topic.
So do you typically follow blogs for your professional life and personal, like hobbies and things? Or how do you choose what you want to follow?
Yes, it's really anything. I mean, I think anytime you become passionate about something and you start casting around for information, I want to learn more, you start to find voices, right? And so the ones that you ultimately find are the ones who are talking the most, probably. And so, yeah, personal life and professional life. I don't know if listeners know this, but I'm a home brewer. So to learn more about that, I started reading a lot of blogs.
That's really, really cool. I follow blogs too, especially legal blogs. And I'm really excited today to bring in our guest, who is, I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say he's a king of legal blogs. His name is Kevin O'Keefe. He's the CEO of LexBlog Inc, based in Seattle. He founded the company in 2004. It's been going for 21 years, and it's all about legal blogs. He is also a Wisconsin lawyer. He started out in Wisconsin as a trial lawyer in La Crosse.
Correct.
And ultimately found his way to the tech world, the legal tech world in Seattle. And so he's made the trip all the way from Seattle, and I'm really happy to welcome Kevin O'Keefe. Kevin, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
So, Kevin, we are big on legal blogs in Wisconsin. As you know, we have a partnership with your company to publish our own legal blogging platform called WisLawNOW, which has been a really great product for us. I think it's been received well in Wisconsin. We've been doing that now for almost 5 years, I think.
Yeah, I think it started right before the pandemic.
Yeah. And so we have about 45 blogs on there. But tell us more before we get into sort of your background and how you got to LexBlog and how you started the company. Tell us what LexBlog does.
Yeah, I bumped into a little article on what turned out to be blogging on a $4.95 platform. And they said they'd have 10,000 subscribers in 90 days. And that was like AOL uptake. So I got on the ferry boat from where I lived, went into downtown Seattle, picked up a couple books on blogging. That's all there was. And my heart started racing because I said, this is perfect for blogging, because it talked about, one did, a plumber having a blog, and you would get to know the plumber. You'd begin to trust them. And if you were restoring your house and you came downstairs and there was an inch of water in your house, who would you call?
Right.
You'd call the blogger that you followed. I said, well, this is good, because I used to call us plumbers in law school. Let's not get carried away. We're all billing by the hour. They just bill a little bit less than us as lawyers. So I could see it and taste it. I said, this is good.
And this was probably in the 90s, right?
Well, I had done some stuff helping AOL run their legal community, and then built my own legal community in a different company. So this was after non-compete with LexisNexis. So it was 2003. And I realized that lawyers don't do things if they would look bad. I mean, I would not have as a lawyer. I'm not going to go out and embarrass myself doing something that nobody else did and look really bad in the process. So what would a lawyer need? Well, they would need to have, strategy. What's the goal here? How would they achieve it? Be strategic in their approach to launching a blog. It would have to look nice. So it'd have to be professional in that regard. Have to be on a platform that worked and was supported. They'd have to have coaching, do this, do that along the way, and free support on an ongoing basis. SEO, marketing, made a list of things. Turned out to be 7 things. And I said, well, if I can do these 7 rather than blogs be free, maybe people would pay for something I would produce in a new company called LexBlog. And at the end of the first year, I think we had 5 or 7 customers. So nothing was setting the earth on, setting things on fire, but I thought this is going to work.
Kevin, can you explain the concept behind LexBlog? Because I think people don't they may not understand how it works.
Yeah, if a lawyer comes to us, I'm going to probably ask them, are you prepared to wave the magic wand? What type of work would you like to do? Who would you like to do it for? What did you go to law school for? Why did you grow up to be a lawyer? And then LexBlog, what it does is somebody needs to have a technology platform, and it needs to be secure, stable, and highly performing, so they don't have to worry about anything. It has to be set up for lawyers because there's certain things that lawyers like. Everything from footnotes to citations to gosh knows what. And so you build something that's tailored for lawyers. So we do the platform, the design, the strategy, the coaching, the SEO, the marketing, visibility, soup to nuts. And then the people pay us a monthly fee for that.
And so what they're doing essentially are most of them writing for their own websites and then it is aggregated into LexBlog, or do you also have the option of them just running things straight through LexBlog?
Most of them have a blog. And when I say a blog, it's like a magazine. So if a lawyer here in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, blogged on their website, would that be as influential if they had a statewide publication for the timber industry? So let's say it was, Timber Law Today, published by such and such law firm. That would be pretty powerful. And then if you listed that in LinkedIn, it would be powerful. If you listed that in your signature line, that would be powerful. If you listed in your signature line, my blog, well, anybody can have a blog. In fact, there's a lot of law firms that list blog on the top of their website that don't even know they have a content is either not written by them or it's written by a marketing company. So that's a big, big thing. There's no question that those lawyers that blog on an independent publication do dramatically better than lawyers that blog off a website. So the lawyers that were my mentors when I'm in La Crosse, they were in Milwaukee. They never had to worry about where their work was coming from. Bob Slattery on products liability cases, we had him all around the country because he was renowned on that subject. Ken and Kirsten and his brother in Milwaukee were renowned in jury cases. They were great lawyers. They didn't need to advertise to draw attention to themselves. Now, if either one of them would have written a publication, so let's say that Bob wrote a blog on an auto liability regarding defective gas caps coming off when you get rear-ended, that'd be highly, highly viewed. He wouldn't put it inside his website. So somehow what happened is after all the blogs were on independent sites, the marketing web companies that didn't understand blogs had to put them on the law firm website. Otherwise, they would look bad for not getting traffic to the firm website. So what you have is the blind following the blind, because you have people that don't blog as a way to get work, putting this content on the website, using up the lawyer's time, and the lawyers are thinking they should do it that way because the people that they spend a lot of money with are telling them to do that. And it's sad because you have a whole nother group of lawyers that are really well known for a subject. So if Jim Walker decided to leave the defense side of Crosse cases, do the plaintiff side, and started Crosse Law News, he has Crosse Law News published by his firm. It's not on a website. He wouldn't have the same amount of followers as the Seattle Kraken, the NHL team in Seattle, if his blog was on his website. It'd be the case. He wouldn't be known in all the ports around the world for holding things in check with various governments. It's just a fact of life. It'd be the same thing with Bill Marler in food safety. He blogs on a blog. He has a website. It's over here. There's always the temptation, can't we get the traffic up on our website? And you can do things to do that by feeding the content into the website. But a blog is a publication. It's a magazine. These things are going into secondary law the same way that an article from a law professor was done. And a law professor didn't have a website where they put their law journal article. It went into the law.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Wilmick was built on a simple idea: lawyers protecting lawyers. They remain grounded in their lawyer-founded mission while actively shaping the future of legal practice through smarter coverage, deeper insight, and forward-looking solutions for Wisconsin attorneys.
Hi, Russell Nicolay here with Nicolay Law, Accident and Injury Lawyers. If you have clients that have been injured, my office would love the opportunity to help them get compensated and get their life back on track. We handle referrals and co-counsel relationships on injury cases all across Wisconsin.
Thank you. And now back to the Bottom Up Podcast.
So you had the example of Cruise Law News, which is on an independent blog. Does that then feed into LexBlog?
Yeah. And look at LexBlog as a place to educate and inspire. So that's where our emphasis is for this year. How can we do a better job of that? How can a lawyer look and say, who are all these people and what are they covering and where are my opportunities? Let's take one area of law that's done well every time. Probate litigation. People fight over wills, and they fight a lot. I think my professor in law school said something like, you really don't know a family until somebody dies and there's a will. Well, these lawyers represent parties in probate that are fighting over a will. And so if a lawyer in Wisconsin started probate litigation, by the end of next year, they would have a lucrative practice that wouldn't ever need to worry where the work's coming from, and they'd be well known in the state. And the reason I know that is because lawyers in other states did it. A lawyer in Miami came back from the first Gulf War as a captain. It's in a law firm where they're doing litigation and estate planning. So what should I do? Probate litigation. Now Juana Tunas that's one of the best known lawyers in the state of Florida, which is kind of cool. Florida's a big state.
Right.
And so you don't have to worry about where his kids are going to go to college. These are all the things that I probably still worry about. But as a lawyer in La Crosse, the idea that I would know that my kids, 5 kids, don't need to worry about where they're going to college, that if I want to write a check to Yale, I can write a check to Yale. I mean, I didn't have that capability to do that. Our bloggers find niches to do that. Business divorce is when small companies have a fight over ownership and dissolution of, did very well. So you look for clues. So there was a gentleman that rode a train from New York to Chicago, and he took the 2 phone books, and he looked in the Chicago phone book as to what New York had and Chicago did not. He became very wealthy and a philanthropist in Chicago. Do the same thing. So is there a lawyer that's doing probate litigation? Is there a lawyer on some other niche that they've done very well in a state? Go do it. Sit down with ChatGPT and say, what's an area that I should do, and maybe tailor it to the particular audience. So if you're doing a particular type of work, maybe it's for the construction industry, or maybe it's for a particular type of ag industry because they're going to see you.
Right. But they can start doing that work, but then they have to have a mechanism for the public and other attorneys to see them.
Yeah, they're going to see them. You have a hard time keeping people away. If you're doing a nice blog, but there's some things you can do. One thing that's really important is to get to that busy intersection, and I would describe the busy intersection to be where people are already talking about that issue. So if somebody's talking about, cruise issues and cruise law issues, and they happen to be a leader on that subject, whether they're part of a mainstream media, whether they write on it, intersect with them, write about them, cite them, they'll start to cite you. So now you're getting out and you're picking up all of their audience. And you could do that on a myriad of things. That email sig line, has, you're the publisher or such and such on it. You share some things on LinkedIn, not to broadcast it, but just to share your insight and commentary. If you are yourself, you are sincere, and you're doing it because you care, you don't have to worry about it. I don't remember in 21 years somebody saying this blog just didn't work at all if they were following those traits.
Right. It's kind of like what you said, Peter. You follow people who you feel are authentic and...
Yeah. Well, because this gets to the question I was going to ask you, Kevin, which is, so an attorney might say, okay, this sounds great, but I do insurance law. No one cares what I have to say, or I'm just not going to get that audience or something. Like, how do you kind of respond to that? What types of lawyers and law firms kind of do you think benefit the most from blogging?
It all depends. And step back to a person. It's really hard to do as a large group. So if all the attorneys got together for lunch and said, okay, we're going to need to start a blog. Well, they're not all passionate about the same thing. In addition to that, some of them want to golf to get work, and they do get work. The other person's saying, I ain't going to golf ever to get work. And so you may only have one blog champion. So trying to blog as a group is a tough experience, and trying to say, okay, we're going to need to have a blog for the firm in which we all contribute. Somebody's responsible to knock on people's doors on Friday and say, you were supposed to blog this week and you didn't, and now you're feeling guilty. You got enough to feel guilty as a lawyer, let alone to feel guilty about another thing. So you want to start to whittle it down as to who's the blog champion here and what do they really want to do with it. And if somebody was talking about insurance and they're 2 years out, let's say they're doing insurance defense work, for a large insurance company, it may not be the most exciting thing in the world. Is an area that they'd like to get passionate about? Well, depending on the firm, they may not let them start to blog on plaintiff's issues. But is there a niche inside of those? Is there how you defend soft tissue cases? Because there's tons of soft tissue cases, and how are they defended? That would be interesting. Would that be interesting to other insurance companies? Yes, it would be interesting to other insurance companies because this person went out and discovered information that could be helpful and shared it with us. And I'll bet there's a boatload of writing on soft tissue cases and auto accidents coming from medical community as well as the defense and plaintiffs community.
Yeah. So let's say you've convinced me. We're ready to start that blog, or we found a champion, somebody who's going to be able to maybe, if it's a small firm, maybe it's just one person, maybe it's an associate, maybe it's a larger firm, maybe there's a core group who might be blogging. What are the next steps? What, you kind of touched on finding topics, ChatGPT was one idea, looking for, things in a niche, the kinds of questions that you as an attorney might be getting from your clients currently, and you can just write about those. How do you kind of take that next step? How do we get this blog up off the ground? Is it as simple as just sitting down and just saying, I'm just going to write?
Yes. So, and the thing you have to know is you can blog bad, but for only so long. And that your audience is the smallest when you start. People worry about this. So we need to have 2 or 3 blog posts. Really? When was the last time you read something? You say, I got to go back to the last 2 or 3 and read it. You don't. You don't read the newspaper and say, I wonder what last week's was like. You start. The passion and the care. Just sit down, whenever things move you to do something. If it's at night, do it at night. If it's in the morning, do it in the morning. If it's on Saturday morning, do it on Saturday morning. Some people are very much follow consistent behavior, so they're going to only do it at a certain time. We have a lawyer that blogs on Business Solution. He writes on Fridays and sometimes Saturday mornings. And I think it's gone out for better part of 20 years, every Monday morning at 6 o'clock. And a lot of times it was before his kids got up and his wife got up on Saturday morning, put a draft of a post together because that's what he did. He just gets started. And you start to take a look around at how other people do it. Because you'll develop your own style. You've never had a writing style. I bumped into blogs because I was trying to figure out a way to learn to write better. So I was a lawyer for 17 years. I started a company, sold it. Okay, I non-compete. What should I do? I should learn to write better this year. God knows I was going to run into a blog company. But by starting to cite other people and quote other people, and that's blogging when you realize you don't have to sit here and have all the answers. Your responsibility is to go get things as a funnel and share it with people and say why you're sharing it. So if I'm a lawyer in Wisconsin and there's a lawyer that in Texas that wrote on a domestic abuse or visitation issue, thought was really good, share it with the people here because they wouldn't have seen it. And then tell people why you shared it, what it meant to you and what they could take out of it. That's a lot. That is a lot what that person did versus an article where somebody just says, I'm going to tell you this or that. So by doing so, you get to the busy intersection and you also makes it easy for you to write because you'd be like you and I talking. Now I've heard it and I respond. And that's what blogging was. It was logging activity on the web. And so I see something, here's a link, and I'm going to put a little description as to what it was, and I'm going to move on to the next thing. That was web blogs. They turned out to be something bigger.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Hi, Russell Nicolay here with Nicolay Law, Accident and Injury Lawyers. If you have clients that have been injured, my office would love the opportunity to help them get compensated and get their life back on track. We handle referrals and co-counsel relationships on injury cases all across Wisconsin.
WisLawNOW was built on a simple idea: lawyers protecting lawyers. They remain grounded in their lawyer-founded mission while actively shaping the future of legal practice through smarter coverage, deeper insight, and forward-looking solutions for Wisconsin attorneys.
Thank you. And now back to the Bottom Up Podcast.
That's great information, Kevin. So I just want to backtrack a little bit and talk about your background. So you started out in Wisconsin as a trial lawyer in La Crosse. Can you tell us a little bit about your path from that work in Wisconsin to, moving into the legal tech world?
Yeah. I was in Wisconsin. I was in Madison for a year between undergrad and law school, and never saw so much snow as that year and the year before in Indiana. And I said, well, I'm not going to law school. So in those days, you have a catalog. You didn't have the internet. And I saw a law school that had palm trees and right on the student union. That's where I'm going. So I was in Sacramento. And then Sacramento took me to Ireland, which is where I had my first job as a trial lawyer, working with barristers and solicitors. And came back here after being in Europe for about a year and a half, trying to figure out we're going back to Wisconsin. We're going to stay here. And it was beautiful in May. And so stayed here for 17 years. Would have stayed here forever. And what happened was when I started my own law firm, I wasn't sure how I was going to get cases, but I knew I didn't want to do bus, the yellow pages, all that type of stuff because it cost too much anyway. What would I do? And there was an ad on TV during a Packers game that said www.toyota.com. I had no idea what that was. And I was told by associate that's the World Wide Web. How do you get there? Various ways. One was AOL. So I took off my phone at the house at night and you went to message boards in the law, and there were a lot of people asking questions and a lot of them giving information. And a lot of them had information because they were involved in that type of case that knew more than the lawyers knew. Not that the lawyers aren't good. So I started answering questions, and everybody was saying, well, you can't. Iowa said, well, you're not going to be able to broadcast it in our state. So that's kind of not the way the internet works. People are going to get it. So we started message boards, listservs, articles, we meaning paralegal assistant, other paralegal associate, producing a lot of content. And people would contact us to find lawyers, and we had 4 lawyers in each of 4 areas of the law in 70 cities that we thought would be good: personal injury, workers' comp, medical mal, and plaintiff's employment. And I didn't know really what it was, but I talked to the large publishing companies, American Lawyer Media, LexisNexis, Martin Hubble, and then went to California venture capital people, and they said, well, this is interesting, but you can't do it in La Crosse because they're not going to give you the millions of dollars and send you on your way. So that's how I ended up in Seattle, because they told me that I can go 1 to 4 cities, go to Silicon Valley, Seattle, Austin, or Boston. And it's a little bit nutty, to basically you have 5 kids, you're telling your spouse that, we've got this beautiful Victorian house that was going to be really nice that we restored, and we're moving to Seattle, and we don't know anybody there.
Yeah, that is a big leap.
And I got to hire about 30 or 40 people really fast. Yeah.
I mean, so you were able to start a company when you moved out there.
Yeah. We told them, I announced to the team, I think in April or May. I visited like these people, and let's say this right now about March or so. Okay. In April or May, I told the team, we're going to close the law office. Anybody that wants to come with me can come. 2 did for a period of time. And then there was a day, and I said, we're going to close the doors on July, 4. It's going to be done. And I will make sure that we get the files to another lawyer that can handle them in a prudent way, let our clients all know what we're doing. And that was it. And 2 of them flew out to go to work in Seattle the day after July 4.
Wow.
As did I.
And so what was that first company?
It was a company called Prairie Law.
Okay.
And Prairie Law was a virtual community of lawyers helping people, lay people and lawyers alike. So if you were a person and you needed to ask a question, you could get that answered by a lawyer. Not every lawyer had email. So you would have good lawyers on the plaintiff side that had emails that were joining a listserv for personal injury, workers' comp, these 4 categories. And we would put them in digests, whatever. And a lot of stuff came through. So it wasn't unusual that like 40 on each of those came through in a day. And that's a lot of information for people. And so we knew we were connecting people with lawyers in a real way. It's much better than a radio show that we did once a week. And then we did message boards, the same thing, at message boards. And then we started doing, some articles or archiving all this stuff. It's a lot of content that you had over like a year.
But then how would Prairie Law generate revenue from that?
Yeah. It's interesting because, I had various ideas, but in the first .com days, best way to compare it to is like owners of baseball teams. It's the greater fool theory. It didn't matter if you were making money. The person that was going to buy the baseball team in 5 years was going to pay way more than you bought it for. Yeah. So it was basically the energy, the traffic, and all the stuff you're doing. If you put in 2 million, what they're more concerned is not if you're making money, it's who's going to put in the 5 or 10 in a year or less. So it was increasing the valuations. And if you would get in the game of trying to demonstrate that you made money and you didn't make it, the valuation wouldn't go as high. So it would actually hurt me as a part owner and all these other people. That's what was going on back then. And it worked in some cases, but not every. I mean, it worked in Amazon case, but Bezos had a model where he was making money on what people were putting in for credit cards, and he had it for a short period of time before he had to deliver. But that was the .com roller coaster. Mm-hmm. So then after you have money in your company, you got a whole lot of employees, you're doing all this stuff, and then people say, we're not going to put any more money in. And you're thinking, well, then I don't really have a company. I got to get it sold.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
So you sold it.
Yeah.
And then that's when you started LexBlog.
And I had a 1 year non-compete after they fired me at LexisNexis.
Okay. Well, that's a crazy story. I mean, you had to have a lot of faith that things were going to work out when you went out to Seattle, but they did.
Yeah. The younger you are doing it, the less walls you see because you haven't had to hit the walls before. So if somebody's starting a company and they're 30 years old, they haven't run through brick walls before. Mm-hmm. And so they don't see them, they don't feel them. And they have a feeling of, now there's a mountain right there, but I can see the plains and what it's like on the other side. Most people can't see those plains because they might think the person is nuts, but if that person believes it enough, they might get everybody else to go through the mountain or over the top. As you get older, there's the roller coasters that you experience, even in LexBlog at 21 years, the ups and the downs. The founder of Micron Computers, I met and befriended, and he always told me, he goes, hey, whatever it is, just continue to look at it like you could capture lightning in a bottle for another day. You can always do that. So I've been 2 or 3 times where I've done that. I said, we're going to capture lightning in a bottle another day. We don't know how do we pull this off or what we do, but we believe we do it. The older I get, it's harder to see it. But the concept of the law being there for people and the concept of lawyers playing some role in it is something I believe very strongly in. And I don't see a lot of people believing in it. There's some. And then the other thing that we have to recognize, there just can't be this many lawyers in Wisconsin unless they have a hyper niche, because AI is going to wipe them out. It's not that I some unique knowledge on AI, but it's growing faster than anything we've ever had before. And it's teaching itself it's learning stuff like crazy. And so how can lawyers continue to operate a practice unless they have a niche and maybe even ahead of AI in that regard? And then for the lawyers to recognize that then AI works for them, because when people do a search, they're going to be listed as a source. There's another reason why you have a blog outside a website. AI is not looking to source ads. They're not looking for, that's the camel billboard here. This is where the picture of the cowboy in the hat was or something, But they will source blogs, and blogs get sourced a lot there. So if a lawyer is blogging in a niche and people do research on it, the lawyer is going to be sourced. So that's important in the AI world as far as lawyers are concerned. But I still have a passion for it, and I think there's a place for it. And now it's a matter of recognizing that this insight and commentary that is coming from lawyers, can it get into a corpus of AI that we can tap into, and then that motivates more lawyers to want to contribute.
Yeah, well, I was going to just chime in and just say, I mean, I think you underscoring, AI and it becoming more and more the go-to source for people for more general knowledge and the need for attorneys to find that niche that they're in. And I think it also goes to kind of what you had touched on earlier, Kevin, which is just, the importance of relationship building when it comes to these blogs. You're building a relationship with your audience as they continue to read your stuff, or as they cast out for anyone with information. They may find yours, they read it. That's just something about it, whether you're just speaking to them in the language that they can understand, or there's something about you that you're putting in that blog that that resonates with them. that relationship building is so important with blogging. I was going to ask you, because you've been a blogger for many years. Can you just touch really briefly just about, I know you said the importance of citing other experts and people. I mean, relationship building for you for blogging, just how kind of important is that?
It's great. And I was saying down last Saturday, based on the type of things we do to sell, flipping from, we're trying to get leads off of our website and whatnot. What if we weren't? And then I'm just bouncing around, the people that I know on LinkedIn from relationships that began probably with my blog. It just doesn't stop. A person is asking to be a member of the legal blogging group. I engage them. Heck, just Saturday, person wanted to follow me but couldn't connect with me based on the way that LinkedIn works. And I realized that, she is a young person working in legal marketing in Johannesburg. But what she realized was, could you put something together that would make it easier to blog for lawyers with AI? Not to write the content, but maybe to prompt them on certain things and make it more natural in the look and feel based on what she's prompting them to do. And I'm asking, because I saw her do this, so I set up a call. Who did this for you? I did. I said, do you have an API that this can work with other companies? Yes. Who did that? I did. Do you have any tech background? No. She goes, you should see the stack of sheets of mistakes that I made trying to build an API that I then had to show ChatGPT what the error message was so that ChatGPT could tell me what to do. She's got this thing and it's done. I'm watching this thing on the screen. That's incredible connection that I built through blogging. We talked about, we don't have a customer base in Johannesburg. I could look at her and think, but she's no Justia or LexisNexis or, larger company, but she's got passion. And I told her, I said, you want to work together at some point in time, let's work together. It's those type of things. And I think for lawyers, if you think about relationships, you say, okay, I want to be known for this subject. What are the associations national that would quote me in their publication? What are the associations nationally that would invite me to speak? Or let's just take local. I didn't get asked that many times to write an article in the Wisconsin Bar out of the blue. Bloggers would, and they would be in a better position to ask. Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, you start to follow a reporter that covers that niche. You get to know them. When you're in Milwaukee, you go see them. How many lawyers sit down with reporters? If I was critical of a reporter for the New York Times that I thought was really wrong in a cover story on a Sunday about social media and how lawyers were going to get in trouble using it, he says, I have thick skin. Let's get together. So we're getting together. When does a snot-nosed kid, originally from La Crosse, get to sit with a reporter with the New York Times? And so that's what you get, other relationships.
That's incredible. That's an amazing connection to make. And it shows the power of putting your words out there and somebody following you and tracking you down like half a world away. And that's really amazing.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Kick off your summer by rolling on the river at the State Bar of Wisconsin's annual meeting and conference, June 10th through 12th at the La Crosse Center in La Crosse, Wisconsin. To check out the schedule or to register now, go to wisbar.org/AMC/2026.
Thank you. And now back to the Bottom Up Podcast.
Go to conferences you may not have gone. People will come up to you and they'll say, I really like your blog. I'm an introvert. It is a lot easier to get to know people if they come up and say, hi, Kevin, I really like you. And people that talk, and they'll talk about how they have a network. They'll say, I'm speaking at an event. And people come up afterwards and say, I really like following you. And now they're making this connection. They didn't have those connections before. And that isn't somebody coming over and saying, I'm going to hand you a new case. But what it is doing is making you feel damn good for being a lawyer. You're contributing something of value. And through these connections, you are going to grow work.
Well, I think, so this kind of tracks to then I think our next question, or at least a question for me then, is kind of turning back then to what LexBlog does. Talk to me then a little bit about how LexBlog through syndication and aggregation can kind of help you expand that reach. So you've started this, you or your firm has started this blog, you're reaching a market. What's the next? So what is the next step then? How can LexBlog kind of help you take it to that next sort of level up?
Yeah. There's different things in play. Traditionally it was syndication. And if we do a nice job, it will do well in search because if people are in our network, this is a site that's had law content for 20-some years. And people that have profiles for their blog, profile the blog, profile the individual, that link going out to their friends helps a lot as far as their visibility. The syndication goes to the American Bar Association, so that right now, since we've been talking, all the posts that have been written are going automatically to the ABA journal and onto a page about that lawyer, about the firm, and then the individual post. Continue to do that sort of thing. But I think there's a lot of it. Let's build on this thing as to this is one giant library with a lot of branches. And how do we support each other? How do we inspire each other? If LexBlog is, CBS News, there's more being done by its affiliates aggregately than at CBS News. So, what's going on in Madison? What's going on in Phoenix? What's going on in Springfield? How can we help the affiliates with the technology that we have so that you can spread the word? And so maybe there's more we can do to help the lawyers in Wisconsin by doing more through you, on educational resources that come out. Maybe there's an educational resource that we were going to run, but we want to make sure you guys can run it too. A lot of opportunities to do things. Who are the star bloggers and what are the niches? Maybe LexBlog ought to be thinking, here's the 5 best niches this quarter, and making sure that lawyers in other states know it.
Do you want to talk about maybe like how this connects in then with WisLawNOW?
Yeah. So, Kevin, this has been really great information for legal bloggers. Before we let you go, I do want to talk about our partnership with LexBlog and give a little backstory for those who may not know what WisLawNOW is. But I think this came out of really the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, we had a lot of law firms that were blogging about what was going on with the pandemic and all the different aspects of the legal things that were happening. We couldn't keep up with these legal blogs. They were coming out 6 of them at a time per day, 6, 7 blogs. And what we did was we tried to create these partnerships with the law firms to say, hey, you're putting these blogs out and this is great information. Can we aggregate them on the WisBar website? So anytime you publish a blog on your website, you're giving us permission to then put it on WisBar. And that became a really heavy lift for us as a communications group because we couldn't keep up with all the posts that were coming out. And so we started talking about how we could make this easier because we had all the posts from the pandemic that were being published, but we also had we had also identified a lot of Wisconsin legal bloggers over the years that we would follow, but we had no real way to bring light to these posts. And so that's when we started talking about, is there a product that we could come up with that would sort of help us aggregate all the legal blogs that were being published in Wisconsin and put it out there to our members and to the public. And so that's when we started talking about WisLawNOW, which became WisLawNOW. I wasn't the communications director at the time, but can you kind of give us a background about how that product came up? Because I was at the bar when it happened, during the pandemic. We started having these conversations.
Yeah. And the pandemic is when, and I'm sitting in my condominium, what am I going to do? So let's talk to some state bars about the opportunity to use this platform in that way. The concept was originally drawn up over a dinner in Vancouver. A gentleman named Tim Slating from the Illinois bar was saying they have a domain that could do this or that. They were thinking about have a site that do this or that. I'm just listening, and I'm right out a napkin and a pen. I said, what if we did something like this? Well, that's interesting. Then I had to go back to my team and say, can we do something like this? And my COO went away for about half a day and came back and said, yeah, we can do that. And so the idea was, can we aggregate them onto one platform for you automatically so that every time somebody finishes a blog post, boom. And then what do we think would look nice? Well, the persons should have a page, because if there's 2 people on the blog, each one of them should have a page with their post. The blog should have a page, and the organization, the law firm, should have a page. But that could automatically run. So if we've been sitting here, talking for 40 minutes, how many blogs have come through, across our global network, but really Wisconsin, maybe 2 or 3, 4 posts came in, and you didn't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, the credible people. So if there's a crazy blog that's coming in, you just don't have it come in.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do anything. And it just seemed to make sense. for so many reasons to give the blogger an attagirl or attaboy, so that to be represented by the Wisconsin Bar. And being represented by the Wisconsin Bar is a good uplift as a lawyer. It doesn't mean that the Wisconsin Bar is advertising for them per se, but they're feeling good about their work, and feeling good about your work allows you to do better work. I had a partner that wrote multiple chapters in the Wisconsin Bar family law book. She took a lot of pride in that, and she let people know that, that she wrote, in it. This is similar. I mean, you're a contributing writer to WisLawNOW. And for the bar, I always looked at it that the bars should inspire lawyers to do good things. And that way we'd have more lawyers that are doing good things for the people in the state of Wisconsin. And then beneficiary of that is the public, Wisconsin, because maybe the lawyer's going to have a greater profile. The lay people may not come to the site, but the lawyer's probably going to do more things. It's going to cause the lay people to see them. So many benefits to it. I wish more states would do it. I think our conversation here a little bit today as to why you did it. The question for me is, how's it gone? I mean, you're how many years into this? 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, I think it's been about 5 years. It's going well. We push it out. We have the aggregator is WisLawNOW. So again, anytime someone who joins the WisLawNOW platform, anytime they post a blog on their own website, it will automatically feed into WisLawNOW. We have about, I would say, 45 legal blogs on there at this point, and we're going to make another push for more because we have identified other legal blogs in Wisconsin that aren't on there. So if you have a blog and you're not on WisLawNOW, I would encourage you to go to wislawnow.com and join your blog. It's free, by the way. There's no cost.
Free. It's free. The bar provides it as a membership, benefit of membership to blogging. You have to be a Wisconsin lawyer or law firm to be a part of it. But like you said, it's totally free. And the great thing is that the great folks over at LexBlog make it about as seamless as possible. I mean, for hooking in your blog to the platform.
Right. And so we push it out as a platform. People can visit wislawnow.com to see what's going on a daily basis. But then we also have an email digest that goes out twice a month on Thursdays, the second and fourth. Is the second and fourth?
I think it's the first and
third,
I think.
Thursdays of the month.
Yeah.
So we select, like the 10 best blogs that we've seen, and those get pushed out by email. And we've had some really good readership rates on that. I think people really like that, just being able to be tapped into what other lawyers are writing about in those different practice areas. So we love it. I think our members who are participating in it love it. And, we look forward to keeping that going.
The only thing I'd add to it too is that, because you might have attorneys who think, well, I'm writing to a client base. What do other attorneys think? Why would they want to read this? And I think attorneys should really recognize that you can learn so much just by seeing how others are responding to their own client bases when they're talking about information, and how much information you glean just from even a practice area that isn't your own. So every time I look at WisLawNOW, I'm always impressed at how much information is shared in these blogs. You kind of touched on it, Kevin, the collegial kind of nature of this information and becoming familiar with people and as authors and as bloggers, and how that can really improve your own writing, and improve how you reach people. It's just been really awesome to see how WisLawNOW, thanks to our partnership with LexBlog, has allowed us to do that.
Is it difficult for you to maintain? Is it like burdensome where you're saying, man, I don't know how we can keep doing this?
No, it isn't. We go in, once a day or once every other day to update the curated content that's on the homepage for WisLawNOW. But beyond that, it generates an email digest every other week for the digest that we can adjust, and we can take out blogs or put them back in. It's been, like Peter said, it's been pretty seamless. And if we have technical issues, LexBlog has been really great about responding to those.
When you say not much time, but you have to touch it every day, how much time is involved every day? I'm curious.
I would say 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that too. Some people told me 15 or 20 minutes a week because they may not look at things closely by the day. But yeah, I mean, that's what we've been telling people. It's not a big lift. You don't have to hire another person to be able to run.
It depends on the size of the community, right?
That's true.
I mean, it's, the more that, and we would love to continue to grow it. I mean, I think it's a great community of legal bloggers and information, but there's still a lot of room for growth. And so, I think if we had to touch it more time than that, that would be a good problem to have in many ways.
Yeah, because one of the reasons I'm here is even to talk about how can we make a member benefit associated with the blog, so that lawyers that haven't started blogging, maybe it's free because they're a member of the bar, and if it follows all the way through, your content is not just syndicated onto WisLawNOW, it's brought in to LexBlog.com, and it goes out to the ABA Journal. So you see, it's going to a lot of places for visibility. In that case, we aren't doing as much as you're doing. At one time, we used to have the top 10 of the day, and lawyers loved it, but it became pretty burdensome to go through
a lot of blogs.
I mean, because you mentioned this before, but how many blogs are on LexBlog? And this it's a global reach, right? I mean, you have...
Yeah, there's two separate pools. There's the Open Legal Blog Archive, and what we did, LexBlog said that we will support a organization that would be like archive.org. We will find what we believe are all credible legal blogs. And it took us a better part of a year, because most of them are not credible legal blogs. They're a lot of junk. And fortunately, in other countries which haven't moved to blogging as fast as the U.S., there isn't as much junk. But in the United States, there's a lot of junk. Then there, is those that are customers of LexBlog, right now. There's about 1,000 blogs being run as customers of LexBlog.com right now. Over the years, there's customers that have come back, those type of things. Everybody wants to try something new. But with those 2,300 blogs, there's 50, that's 2,300 blogs running right now. Besides that, we have 54,000 blog posts. So that could be over 20 years, whatever, that we've accumulated. 54,000 authors. The number of posts is 900 and some thousand. So we'll hit 1 million posts this summer. That's a lot of insight and commentary. And so just like Twitter, when it began, it was there so that the developers that were challenged by errors could communicate immediately. Boom. Well, imagine all of this content, 1 million blog posts being there, thrown into an AI environment where we're connecting a lot of insight. And then take the articles that are written by law firms and they're on the websites. And articles and websites do not do a lot for prestige, because people don't go to advertising bodies and look for content on advertising bodies, which like a website is. But take those, which are also some good insight, just like a blog post would be. Bring that together with the blogs, and how much really good insight do we have from practicing lawyers? And it could be a practicing lawyer in, Economolog. It doesn't have to be somebody that's written for the Law Review. That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah. And I will say, LexBlog is on Fastcase, which is now VLex Fastcase, correct? Right. So if someone is searching for secondary sources in VLex Fastcase, which was formerly just Fastcase, they will be able to see some of the blog posts that were posted on LexBlog.
That's right. The challenge in the space is like everything in the law with change. People that have been traditional publishers still look a little bit down at blogs. They didn't go through, they weren't writing while they were a law student at Stanford. It's not a law professor at the University of Wisconsin. And some of them don't even like the name blog. This could be good. It came from a blog. You're going, it's okay. The leading blog covering the Supreme Court is SCOTUS. It's
a great
blog.
Point. That is an excellent point.
But you're right. What you're seeing is traditional legal publishers now looking for, how do we get this insight and commentary? And then those lawyers are getting to those places. And I think it's up to LexBlog, because it has a relationship with all the bloggers. It would be very hard for a law firm to say, we got a couple really good blogs. Could you include this blog in your legal publishing? Because they don't have the mechanics to get it.
Yeah.
So we'll take on the burden of that.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long here, Kevin. I'll just ask you one more question. What do you think the future of legal blogging is going to be?
It's so hard to know, and I think it's because of, artificial intelligence. How do we advance our thinking? What's the medium that goes back and forth, with artificial intelligence? Is it my iPad? Is it, my talking? What is that all going to be? I think in the short term, next 5 years, maybe 10, I could be obviously dead wrong. It will accelerate knowledge. It will accelerate insight because you have access to so much more. And our minds will learn to process that acceleration in a way that they haven't before. So if a lawyer wants to provide insight and commentary, not only are they going to see primary law, but they're going to see secondary law and all these law blogs instantaneously because it's going to be right in front of them. So if I wanted to see, hey, what's going on in publishing? If I publish something, do I have to give an exclusive right to a publisher? What if AI put a contract between that publisher and another party and said, here's what you're tending to see for that? That's really fast. I would have never found that before. So for blogging, I think it's going to accelerate for a while our knowledge. And somebody's going to have to be there to process it, that's seen these type of things before. The same way it would be for medicine. Somebody at Mayo Clinic, they're going to be able to diagnose cancer much faster than they used to. And they're going to know which treatments to use much faster than they used to. And as a result, eventually, cancer will not be something that kills people anymore. But you would like to think that somebody that was a doctor, an oncologist, was dealing with this before, and maybe not, somebody that was a rock star or something. I think the same thing for lawyers. And blogs will continue to be that gathering of information faster, processing the information faster, and then putting it out there. And will it be by keyboard? Will it be by talking? I don't know. I think it's a great time for lawyers that not to be scared off from blogging because we don't know what AI is going to bring. Jump in because this probably accelerates your opportunity to be known, not sets it back.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, you came a long ways to see us today. We thank you so much for the conversation. He's the CEO of LexBlog Inc., and his name is Kevin O'Keefe. Thank you so much for being with us today, Kevin.
Thank you. It was great.
It was a pleasure.
Likewise.
All right, that concludes this episode of the Bottom Up Podcast. This is Joe Forward and Peter Kraemer at the State Bar of Wisconsin, filling in for Emil Oviagale and Kristen Hardy. We hope to have them back next time. Thanks so much for listening.